I've had plenty of weird things happen to me over the years, but this one from when I was 12 still makes me feel sick when I think about it too long. It was the summer before 7th grade, maybe 2003 or 2004. My family had just moved to a new neighborhood in suburban Ohio, and I didn't really know anyone yet. My mom was desperate for me to make friends, so when a girl named Cassie from down the street invited me to her birthday sleepover, my mom basically packed my bag herself. Cassie seemed normal enough. She had a nice house, a trampoline in the backyard, and a mom who let us order pizza and watch PG-13 movies. There were 4 of us total. Me, Cassie, a girl named Dana, who went to Cassie's school, and a girl named Meredith, who I'd never met before that night. Meredith was quiet. Not shy quiet, just still. She sat with her legs folded underneath her on the air mattress Cassie's mom had set up, and she watched the rest of us talk and laugh like she was observing something she didn't quite understand. I figured she was just socially awkward. I was too, so I didn't judge. We stayed up way later than we should have. Around midnight, Cassie's mom came down, told us lights out, and went back upstairs. Cassie had a little battery-operated lantern she kept on low. We were all lying on our respective sleeping bags and mattresses, whispering and trying not to laugh too loud. Normal sleepover stuff. I fell asleep probably around 1 in the morning. I don't know exactly what time it was when I woke up, but the lantern had been switched off and the room was genuinely dark. Like the kind of dark where your eyes don't adjust no matter how long you wait. I woke up for no real reason, no sound, no dream I remembered. I just opened my eyes, and I could feel that something was different. I lay there for a second just listening. I could hear Dana and Cassie breathing, that slow sleeping person rhythm. But I could also hear something else. A very faint, very steady sound. Almost like someone whispering to themselves, but too low to make out any words. I turned over toward the sound. My eyes were adjusting a little by then, enough to pick up shapes, and I could see Meredith. She was sitting upright on her air mattress, perfectly straight, just sitting there in the dark, facing my direction. I told myself she probably just woke up and couldn't sleep. Maybe she was looking at her phone, but I couldn't see any phone light. I squinted, and I realized she wasn't looking at a screen. She was just looking at me. At least, her face was pointed directly at me. I closed my eyes fast, the way you do when you're a kid, and you convince yourself that if you can't see something, it can't see you. My heart was going pretty hard. I breathed slowly and waited. After what felt like 5 minutes, I opened them again. She was still sitting there, still facing me. That low whispering sound was still going. I don't know how long I lay there pretending to be asleep while watching her through mostly closed eyes. It could have been 20 minutes. It felt like 2 hours. At some point, I genuinely must have drifted off again, because the next thing I knew, it was morning, and light was coming through the curtains, and Cassie was asking if anyone wanted waffles. Meredith was lying down on her mattress, eyes closed, totally normal. I looked at her eating breakfast, and I almost convinced myself I dreamed the whole thing. Kids do weird stuff when they sleepwalk, right? She was probably half asleep. I let it go. Cassie had another sleepover about 6 weeks later. Back to school kind of thing. Same group. I almost didn't go, but I felt stupid about it, so I did. This time I made sure I was closest to the wall, and I told myself I was just going to sleep and not think about Meredith. I woke up again around the same dead part of the night. Again, for no reason. Again, The lantern was off. I lay there for a moment before I even looked up, and when I did, I already somehow knew what I was going to see. Meredith was sitting up, same position, same stillness, facing me. This time I could hear the whispering a little more clearly. It wasn't words I recognized. It wasn't English, or at least I didn't think so. It was rhythmic, almost like counting or reciting something. And her hands were moving slightly in her lap, like she was turning something over between her fingers. I couldn't see what it was. I sat up. I don't know why. I think part of me wanted her to know I could see her, wanted her to stop, wanted it to just be embarrassing rather than whatever else it was. I said her name pretty quietly. Meredith. She stopped whispering immediately. Complete silence. But she didn't move. We sat there across from each other in the dark for what felt like a long time. Then slowly, she lay back down. No response. No acknowledgement that I'd said her name. She just lay down like a doll being set on a shelf and pulled her blanket over herself. And that was it. I did not sleep the rest of that night. I sat with my back against the wall until Cassie's mom came down at 7:30. I'm not sure I even blinked much. In the morning, I pulled Cassie aside and I told her what happened. Both times. I expected her to laugh at me or call me dramatic. Instead, she got this look on her face. Tight, uncomfortable. She said, kind of quietly, that Meredith had done something similar at a sleepover the year before. That another girl had woken up and Meredith had been crouching next to her, just watching her sleep from about 6 inches away. That detail, the 6 inches, made my stomach drop in a way I still can't fully explain. Cassie said the girl had screamed and Meredith had just stood up and walked to the bathroom, like nothing happened. I asked Cassie why she still invited her then. Cassie didn't really have a good answer. She said Meredith's mum and her mum were friends. That Meredith had told her mum that sleepovers helped her with something, some kind of anxiety or issue she had. And her mum had asked Cassie's mum to keep including her. That explanation only made it worse. That there was some reason. That this was somehow a known thing that adults in her life were aware of and apparently working around. I moved schools the following year, so I stopped going to Cassie's sleepovers naturally. I saw Meredith one more time, at a grocery store with her mum maybe a year later. She looked completely ordinary. She even smiled at me, a completely normal smile. That was almost worse. I never found out what the whispering was. I never found out what she was holding in her hands in the dark. I've thought about it as an adult and tried to apply some rational explanation. Sleepwalking disorder, some kind of dissociative thing, who knows? But the thing that doesn't fit any of those explanations is how immediately she stopped when I said her name, and then said nothing, and just lay down. Something that's aware of you isn't sleepwalking. That's all I keep coming back to. Whatever she was doing in the dark, she knew I was there. I don't know what Meredith's deal was. I hope she's okay, genuinely. But I also hope I never find out. If any of you have experienced something similar at a sleepover, someone doing something they couldn't or wouldn't explain afterward, I'd honestly like to hear it. Drop it in the comments. And if this kind of story is your thing, you know what to do. My best friend Derek and I had sleepovers at each other's houses probably 100 times growing up. This happened at his place when we were 16, and is the reason I haven't spent a night there since. Derek and I met in 4th grade and were basically inseparable through high school. He lived about a mile from me in a rural part of western Pennsylvania. One of those areas where the houses are spaced far apart, lots of tree cover, the kind of neighborhood where it gets genuinely completely dark at night No streetlights, no ambient city glow, just dark. His house was a split-level, older place his parents had owned for years. His room was in the basement level, which had its own exterior door that led out to the side yard. His parents let him use it as a kind of private entrance, which as a 16-year-old he thought was the coolest thing in the world. We used to sneak out that door constantly. This was October, junior year, a Friday. We'd planned to stay up late playing video games, maybe sneak out at some point, nothing special. His parents went to bed around 10, and that was more or less it. We had the basement to ourselves for the night. Around 11:30, Derek said he wanted to go out to the fire pit in the backyard. It was cold but clear, and we did this sometimes, just sat out there with our phones. I wasn't really in the mood, but I went. We were out there maybe 40 minutes, then came back in through that side door. I didn't notice anything different right away. We sat back down, kept playing our game, but maybe 20 minutes after we came back inside, I started feeling off. Not sick, just unsettled. Like when you're alone in a house and you suddenly can't shake the feeling that you're not alone. Except Derek was right there. I kept looking over my shoulder at the dark part of the room near the laundry area, and I didn't know why. I didn't say anything because I didn't want to sound weird. I told myself it was just the cold air and being tired. We kept playing. Then Derek paused the game and said, kind of carefully, "Do you feel something?" And I got a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature. I told him, "Yeah, actually I did." He nodded slowly, like I'd confirmed something he'd already noticed. He said it started when we came back inside, that he felt like something came in behind us. Now, Derek was not the kind of person who said things like that. He was the most skeptical, practical person I knew. He laughed at ghost stories. He rolled his eyes at anything paranormal. Hearing him say it like that, flat and matter of fact, was more frightening than any ghost story he'd ever dismissed. We both looked toward the exterior door. It was closed and locked. The deadbolt turned. Nothing there. But the feeling didn't go away. If anything, talking about it made it stronger. The laundry alcove at the far end of the basement felt heavy. That's the only word I have for it. Heavy. Derek got up and turned on the overhead light. The big fluorescent one he almost never used because it was harsh and flickered. It came on with that buzzing sound and filled the whole room in that flat, clinical way. Nothing in the laundry area. Washer, dryer, a shelf with detergent. Completely ordinary. We both stood there looking at it. The feeling didn't go away. The light didn't help. That was the part that really got me. In my experience, turning on a light always helps, even if just psychologically. This time it made no difference whatsoever. Whatever the feeling was, it didn't care about the light. We decided to just go to sleep. It was almost 1 by then anyway. Derek had a second twin bed in his room from when his cousin used to visit, so I took that. We turned off the game, turned off most of the lights, left one lamp on. Neither of us said much. We just kind of got into bed and lay there. I was almost asleep when I heard Derek's breathing change. He'd been doing that slow settling in rhythm, and then it shifted, shorter, more awake. Then he said, very quietly, "Don't move. Don't look toward the door." I froze. I was on my side facing the wall, and I did not move. My whole body went rigid. I could hear my own heartbeat. I heard Derek's sheets shift slightly, like he was pulling them up or sitting up a little, and then total stillness. We stayed like that for what felt like a very long time. I don't know how long. Long enough that my muscles started aching from being held so tightly still. Long enough that I started wondering if Derek had fallen back asleep or was messing with me. And then he said, "Okay, I think it moved." I turned over. The exterior door was still closed. The lamp was still on. I asked him what he saw. He was quiet for a second and then said he'd seen a shape standing near the exterior door. He thought at first it was his eyes adjusting to the low light and making something out of the coats hanging on the wall. But then it moved. He said it moved the way a person moves when they take a step. I turned the lamp up to full and we both looked. Just the coats, just the door with its deadbolt turned. Derek looked genuinely shaken in a way I had never seen from him before. He kept rubbing the back of his neck and not saying anything. Neither of us slept. We stayed up the rest of the night with every light in the basement on, playing a game neither of us was paying any attention to. At some point around 4 in the morning, the feeling finally started to lift, like pressure releasing. Derek exhaled when it did, and I realized he'd been holding himself tense the whole time too. When it was light outside, we went upstairs without discussing it. We ate cereal at his kitchen table and watched something stupid on TV and didn't talk about what had happened. We were 16. We didn't have language for it. I think we both just wanted it to be a weird night that was over. About 2 weeks later, I asked him about it. He said he'd been doing research, not into paranormal stuff, but into the woods behind his house. He said he'd found out that a man had died in those woods years earlier, some kind of hunting accident, and that his body hadn't been found until the following spring. I asked him if that's what he thought it was. He said he didn't know, but he said that ever since that night, he kept that exterior door locked with an extra bolt his dad installed, and he stopped going out to the fire pit after dark. Derek still lives in that house. He lives there alone now, owns it since his parents moved south. He has a girlfriend who stays over sometimes, and I asked him once if he'd ever told her about the basement. He said no. He said she doesn't use that room. I've been back there a handful of times since, just for dinner, just for afternoons. I've never spent the night again. Derek has never pushed it, and I've never explained. I think we both understand without saying it. I still don't know what came in through that door with us, but I believe Derek saw something. And I know that whatever the feeling was, it was real. 2 people felt it independently, and it lifted at the same moment. That doesn't happen with imagination. Derek still sends me a message sometimes on nights when he says the basement feels weird. Just a heads up, like he's keeping a log. I don't know what to do with that. I don't think either of us do. Thanks for listening. If you've had something follow you home or follow someone else in, I'd genuinely like to hear about it down below. I used to think the creepiest sleepovers were the ones where something happened. Now, I think it's the ones where you see something that makes you quietly reassess everything you thought you knew about the people around you. This was 2011. I was a freshman in college, living in the dorms at a mid-sized school in the Midwest. I'd been placed with a roommate named Priya, who I got along with fine. We weren't best friends, but we were friendly, easy to live with. Around October, she invited me to come home with her for a long weekend. One of those Monday holidays where the dorms got really empty and miserable. Priya's family home was about 3 hours away by bus, a small city in Illinois. Her parents were warm people. Her mom made an enormous amount of food, and her dad kept showing us things he'd recorded on TV that he thought we'd find interesting. It was a good first night. I felt comfortable. Priya's childhood room was small, but her parents had put an air mattress on the floor for me. The house was one of those older 2 stories, narrow hallway upstairs, the kind with a bathroom shared between 2 bedrooms and a linen closet, and framed family photos going all the way down the hall. The first night, I didn't pay much attention to the photos. You don't really look at people's family pictures when you're new to the house. It feels a little intrusive, honestly. I just registered them as a gallery of generic family moments. Holidays, vacations, kids at various ages. I went to sleep without giving them any thought. The second night, I got up around 3 to use the bathroom. Priya was asleep. I padded out into the hallway, which had a little nightlight plugged in near the floor, just enough to navigate by. On the way back from the bathroom, I was half asleep and moving slowly, and I happened to actually look at the photos on the wall for the first time. Most of them were what I expected. Priya at different ages, her parents, what I assumed were cousins and grandparents. But one photo stopped me. It was near the linen closet, a little lower on the wall than the others. A 4x6 in a plain black frame. It showed a birthday party. Balloons, a cake, kids around a table. Priya was in it, maybe 8 or 9 years old. The thing that stopped me was one of the kids at the table. A girl seated directly across from Priya, facing the camera. She was smiling, blowing a noisemaker, completely normal. But she was the only child in the photo I didn't recognize, which on its own wouldn't be strange. What was strange was the way she was looking at the camera. It's hard to explain. Her eyes looked too focused. Everyone else had that slightly blurry kid at a party look, caught mid-movement. This girl was perfectly still and looking directly into the lens. I stood there looking at it longer than I should have. I was half asleep and probably reading too much into it. I went back to bed and told myself I was doing the thing where you stare at something normal for too long and make it seem wrong. Except I couldn't stop thinking about it. I lay on the air mattress staring at the ceiling, and something kept pulling my attention back to that photo. Not a supernatural feeling exactly, more like the feeling you get when you've seen something that doesn't fit and your brain won't let it go. In the morning at breakfast, I casually asked Priya about the photos in the hallway. Told her I'd seen them on my way to the bathroom. She smiled and started telling me about them. That's her grandmother. That's her cousin's wedding. That's her 5th birthday. Normal stuff. I asked about the birthday photo by the linen closet, the one with all the kids. She looked at me for a second and then said, "Oh, that's my 9th birthday." I asked who the girl was, the one sitting across from her with the noisemaker, and Priya's expression shifted just slightly, not dramatically, just a tightening around the eyes. She said the girl's name was Lauren. She said Lauren had been in her class. I waited for her to say more and she didn't, so I asked if they were still friends. Priya said no and moved the conversation somewhere else. Her mum refilled my juice. The moment passed. That afternoon, Priya and I went out to run errands with her mum, and while Priya was in the store, I was alone in the car with her mum for a few minutes. I don't know what made me do it. I still feel a little bad about it, but I asked her about Lauren from the birthday photo. Priya's mum went very quiet, and then she said, almost carefully, "Where did you hear that name?" I told her I'd seen the photo, and Priya had mentioned it at breakfast. She was silent for another moment, and then she said Lauren had passed away when Priya was 10. She said it was a very hard time and that the family didn't really talk about it. I said I was sorry, that I hadn't meant to bring up something painful. She nodded and said it was fine. Then she said something that I've turned over in my mind probably hundreds of times since. She said, "Priya still keeps that photo up. We've offered to move it, but she won't let us." That night, I looked at the photo again on my way to the bathroom. I made a point of it this time. Same girl, same expression, same two focused eyes. I studied it longer now that I knew. I don't know what I expected to feel. Sadness, maybe. Instead, what I felt was that same inexplicable wrongness from the first time. Because here's what I kept coming back to. The photo was taken at Priya's 9th birthday. Priya had said it herself at breakfast. Lauren died when Priya was 10. Meaning Lauren was alive when that photo was taken. That was normal. There was no reason the photo should feel wrong. A living child at a birthday party. That's all it was. And yet, I went back to the air mattress and I lay there thinking about Priya keeping that photo up on the wall. Not in a box, not in her room, on the wall, in the hallway, where anyone walking past at night would see it. Around 2 in the morning, I woke up again. I hadn't been deeply asleep. More like that thin, anxious kind of sleep where you're aware of sounds. What woke me was Priya. She was sitting at her desk on the other side of the room, which she'd done our second night there too, just on her laptop. But this time she wasn't on her laptop. She was just sitting there, and the desk faced the wall. She was sitting at her desk in the dark facing the wall. I watched her for a moment. She wasn't moving. I said her name very quietly, and she startled. A real startled response, gasped a little, spun around. She said she'd been having trouble sleeping and had come to sit at her desk. I said, okay, totally understandable, and I lay back down. She got into her bed. In the morning, I noticed for the first time that her desk faced the wall that bordered the hallway. The wall where the photos were. I've thought about whether I was just doing what the brain does, taking pieces of normal, sad, human things and constructing a pattern that wasn't there. Priya lost a friend when she was 10. She kept a photo of her. She had trouble sleeping. Those are all completely ordinary things. None of that is evidence of anything. But I also think about the way Priya's mom said it. We've offered to move it. Not to take it down, just move it. And Priya wouldn't let them. I don't know where they offered to move it to. I don't know what answer Priya gave them. I never asked. And now it feels too late. Priya and I drifted apart after freshman year, the way dorm roommates often do. I haven't spoken to her in years. I've thought about reaching out and I never do. I don't think I'd know what to say. I don't think there's a version of that conversation where I come out understanding it any better. I want to be clear. I liked Priya. I still do. In the distant way you like people from a different part of your life. I'm not saying anything sinister about her. I just think grief does things to people that the rest of us aren't always equipped to see clearly. And sometimes you spend a weekend in someone else's house and you come home carrying a question you'll never get answered. If that resonates with you, let me know in the comments. And stick around. There's more where this came from.